Today we're covering Chapter 1, Lesson 3, Convert Unit Rates. So we have two definitions that you need to write down. We have a unit ratio, is a unit rate where the denominator is 1 unit. And dimensional analysis is the process of including units of measurement when you compute. It is very important, especially in this lesson, to include your units of measure. So go ahead and pause this and take a moment to write these down, please. I just want you to follow along. Don't worry about writing this down. Squirrels, chipmunks, and rabbits are capable of running at fast speeds. The table shows the top running speeds of these animals. So a squirrel can run up to 10 miles per hour, a chipmunk up to 15 miles per hour, and a cottontail rabbit can run up to 30 miles per hour. So question 1 says, how many feet are in 1 mile? So there are 5,280 feet in a mile. This is actually one of the numbers that you need to memorize. There's two numbers I want you to memorize. This is one of them. It's kind of weird, but a way to help you remember this is 5 tomatoes. So 5 to 2 mate 8 0 0. So 5 tomatoes. So 5,280 feet in 1 mile. If we have 10 miles, then we're going to have 52,800 feet. Remember, when we multiply by 10, we're just adding a 0 to the end of our number. How many seconds are in 1 minute? That one should be pretty easy. There's 60 seconds in a minute. But how many seconds are there in an hour? If there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, if you multiply 60 times 60, that's going to tell you how many seconds are in an hour. That is 3,600. This is the second number you need to memorize. Okay, so make sure that you have both of these written down, these conversions down, because those are the two numbers that you need to memorize. We have 1 mile is 5,280 feet, and 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. Okay, this can be found on page 26 in your math book. So you don't need to worry about writing this down because you already have it. The relationships among some commonly used customary metric units of measure are shown in the tables below. So 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. 8 pints is equal to 1 gallon. 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. 5,280 feet is equal to 1 mile. There's one of those that you need to memorize. 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter. 1,000 grams is equal to 1 kilogram. 1,000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. 10 milliliters is equal to 1 centimeter. And 1,000 milligrams is equal to 1 gram. So each of the relationships in the table can be written as a unit ratio. So again, over 1. And then we see examples of this right here. 12 inches over a foot, 16 inches over a pound, and 100 centimeters over a meter. Okay, I want you to think, which is larger, 12 inches or 1 foot? That's kind of a trick question because they're the exact same distance. 12 inches is the same distance as 1 foot. Same thing, 16 ounces weighs the same amount as 1 pound. And 100 centimeters is the same distance as 1 meter. So really, this fraction right here, if you were to simplify it, is equal to 1. Because you have the same distance on the top that you do the bottom. This one is equal to 1. Because the weight on the top and the bottom is the same. And this one's equal to 1 because the distance is the same. So this is going to be really helpful when we convert our fractions and try to change our measurements. We're going to have to create our own ones, but we're going to set them up like this. So although the numbers and the words are different, the weight or the length is the same. Okay, go ahead and copy this down. A remote control car travels at a rate of 10 feet per second. How many inches per second is this? So pause this so you have enough time to write it down, please. Okay, so we're going to write our first fraction. And this is similar to what we did in the first couple of lessons in this chapter. We're going to create our ratio. So we're going to have 10 feet over the per second. So that's going to be 1 second. So there's my fraction. Now I need to multiply it by 1. But I need to figure out what my 1 is. So underline feet per second and inches per second. And look at these two phrases. I want you to look at what's the same and what is different about these. So both of these are per second. So we're going to cross that off because that's not going to change. What do we have left? We have feet and inches. And since we talked about this one first, we're going to convert our feet, 10 feet, into inches. So when I multiply this, I have to get rid of the feet and change it to inches. So in order to do that, I have my feet on the top here. I'm going to write feet on the bottom, and there's a reason for that. I'll go over it in just a moment. Now what do I put on the top? What are we changing it to? We're changing it to inches. So that's what goes on the top. Now we need to think, which is larger, 1 foot or 1 inch? The one that's larger is going to have our 1. 1 foot's larger. Now how many inches are in a foot? 12 inches in a foot. So now I have my fractions set up. I have the initial ratio times my 1. Here's why we wanted feet on the bottom over here. Just like you can cross-reduce numbers, you can cross-reduce and cancel out units of measure as well. So since I have feet on the top and on the bottom, they cancel out. So those are gone. Okay. Which is good because we wanted to get rid of those, so that's how we get rid of them. So I'm looking, there's nothing else that I can reduce. I can't reduce in any other way. So my next step is to multiply. I'm going to multiply 10 times 12 inches. That's going to give me 120 inches. Over, because I have my fraction, 1 second times 1 is 1 second. So this is my answer. I could also write this as 120 inches per second. Either one would be correct, because they both mean the same thing. Copy this one down. A swordfish can swim at a rate of 60 miles per hour. How many feet per hour is this? So go ahead and pause this if you need a moment to copy this down. Okay, we're going to set up our first fraction. So our first fraction will be 60 miles per, that's over, hour. We have 1 hour. Okay, I'm going to underline my units of measure. I have miles per hour and feet per hour. So I'm going to look at these two units that I have, figure out what is the same and what is different. So they both have per hour. So I'm going to get rid of that. So what I have left is miles and feet. So since this one's with the number 60 miles, means I'm going to change these miles into feet. That's what we're converting it to. So I have to set up my fraction. What am I going to multiply this by? So miles is on the top here. I want it on the bottom so it'll cancel out. So then I have to figure out what goes on the top. Okay, if we're changing it from miles, we're changing it into feet. So feet is going on the top. It won't always be this way. You're not always going to put the original on the bottom and what you're changing it to on the top. Sometimes it's going to be switched. that's why it's very important to pay attention to your units of measure. That tells you where to put these units of measure. And these units of measure tell you what numbers to use. So which is larger, 1 mile or 1 foot? 1 mile is. How many feet are in a mile? Think back. This is that number that I need you to memorize. There's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Now that I have this set up, I can cross reduce. So I'm going to cancel out my miles. Those are gone. That's what I wanted to get rid of anyway. So I have 1 unit of measure on the top and 1 unit of measure on the bottom. That is all that I want. My next step is to multiply. I'm going to multiply 60 times 5,280 and 1 times 1. Let's write out 5,280 times 60. We'll put the longer number on the top. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 8 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. And 0 times 5 is 0. 6 times 0, we've got to move over 1, is 0. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 14 is 16. And 6 times 5 is 30. Plus 1 gives us 31. So I'm going to add this together. My 0 comes down. 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 6 plus 0 is 6. And my 1 and my 3 carry down. So what I've got left is 316,800 what? Feet per hour. Again, you could also write this as 316,800 feet over 1 hour. Both of these are correct. So you can use whichever one you like best. So make sure that you have that all written down. Number 3, copy this down. Marvin walks at a speed of 7 feet per second. How many feet per hour is this? Okay, so I'm going to write down my first one. I have 7 feet per, a fraction, second. So I'm going to have 1 second. Okay, now I'm going to underline my units of measure. And I'm going to look what is the same and what is different. In this case, we have our feet per. That's the same. So I'm going to cross that off. That is not changing. What is changing, however, is we are changing seconds into hours. So we need to figure out what we're going to multiply our 1 by. So this is going to be times. Okay, we're going to set up our 1. We are changing from seconds to hours. Where is seconds here? Is it on the top or the bottom? It's on the bottom. So where do we have to put it over here if we want it to cancel out? Yeah, we have to put it on the top. Remember, we want it to cancel out, and it'll only cancel out if one's on the bottom and one's on the top. So we have a second on the bottom and a second on the top. What are we changing it into? We're changing our seconds into hours. So that's what we put in our blank spot on the bottom. Now we need to think, which is bigger, 1 second or 1 hour? 1 hour is bigger. How many seconds are in an hour? This is that second number that you need to memorize. 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Now that I have this set up, I can cross reduce. So I can get rid of my seconds. That's gone. So I'm left with one unit, one measure of unit on the top and one measure of unit on the bottom, which is what I want. So now I'm going to multiply 7 times 3600 over 1 times 1. So let's figure out what this is. I'm going to put my longer number first, times the shorter number. It does not matter what order you multiply in, but it's typically easier if you put your longer number on top. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 0 again, 0. 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. So this is equal to 25,200 feet over 1 hour. What's the other way we can write this? But you could also write it as 25,200 feet per hour. Both of those are correct, so you can use either one. Okay, I want you to copy these down. A gull can fly at a speed of 22 miles per hour. How many feet per hour can the gull fly? An Amtrak train travels at 125 miles per hour. Convert the speed to miles per minute. Round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so pause this so you have enough time to copy those down. Before you solve them, there's something else that I wanted to go over. If I have a fraction, so this one ended up where both of our numbers are on the top, but they're not always going to end up that way. Sometimes you're going to end up with, let's say when we multiply, let's say we have 125 feet over 1 second times trying to think. I want this over 50. I know that this doesn't work, but we'll just say, actually, sorry, let me take out my units of measure because that makes it a little confusing with this. So, say we have 125 something times 1 over 50 is what we end up when we're trying to multiply. Okay. When you multiply, you end up with 125 over 50. And sometimes this is going to happen where you're not multiplying these two numbers. So what do you have to do? When you have fractions, a fraction is another form of a division statement. So when you see this, a number on top of another number, you're going to be dividing. So this would be 125 divided by 50. And whatever your answer is what this equals. So you're not just going to multiply, so don't just multiply the numbers, because that's what the examples we've done so far have done. They're not always going to be multiplication. Sometimes you're going to end up with something like this where you have to divide, and that's okay. So now that we've gone over that, I want you to go over A and B. For one of them, you're going to end up multiplying, and for the other, you're going to have to divide. So go ahead and pause this and take a moment to work on it. Okay. Need more time, pause this. So the gull can fly at a speed of 22 miles per hour. Gotta get my pen working, there we go. How many feet per hour can the gull fly? So I'm going to set up my first fraction. It's going to be 22 miles per over 1 hour. So I'm going to underline my units of measure. I have miles per hour and feet per hour. I'm going to cross off what's the same between these. So both of these have per hour. I'm going to cross that out. That's gone. We're not changing that at all, so we don't need to focus on it. What we do need to focus on is what we're changing. We're going to be changing miles to feet. So this is going to tell me what I'm going to multiply by. So I'm going to set up my fraction. If I'm changing miles to feet, I want to get rid of miles. So since it's on the top here, I have to put it on the bottom here. And I'm going to change it to what I have left. I have feet. This has to be the same type of measurement. You cannot put miles over hours, or a distance over a time, or you can't combine a time and a weight, or a distance and a weight. When it comes to this fraction, it has to equal 1. So they both have to be a distance, or a weight, or a measure of time. They have to be the same type of measurement. Okay, now we're going to figure out which is larger, 1 mile or 1 foot. 1 mile is. So in 1 mile there are 5,280 feet. Remember, 5 tomatoes. 5,280 feet. So now we can reduce. Let's cancel out our miles. That's gone. So I'm left with feet and hours. So that's good. I have one on the top and one on the bottom. Our next step is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply 5,280 times 22. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. So now we're going to add this together. I have 0. 6 plus 0 is 6. 5 plus 6 is 11. I have 5 plus 0 plus 1 is 6. 1 plus 0 is 1, and this 1 carries down. So my answer will be, write it over here, 116,160 feet per 1 hour. Again, you could write this as 116,160 feet per hour. Both are correct. In fact, you'll probably see me write it like this most of the time. Okay, let's look at B. We're going to set up our first fraction. We have 125 miles per hour, so it's going to be 1 hour. I need to figure out what I'm going to multiply this by. So I have miles per hour, and I'm converting the speed to miles per minute. So let's look and see what's the same. Both of these have miles per. They start the same, so we're going to get rid of that. I'm changing my hours to my minutes. I'm going to set up my fraction. So I want to get rid of hours. So where's hours over here? On the bottom. So it has to go on the top over here. So what do I put on the bottom? I put minutes, what I'm changing it to. Now I need to think, which is larger, 1 hour or 1 minute? 1 hour is. How many minutes are in an hour? 60. So, we're going to cancel out our hours. Now I'm going to multiply. Multiplying 125 by 1, so it's 125 miles, over 1 times 60 is 60 minutes. But this isn't over 1. It has to be over 1 for us to be done. So what do I have to do? Remember, a fraction is another form of a division statement. So we need to divide. So this will be 125 divided by 60. How many times does 60 go into 125? It goes in 2 times. That's 120. I'm going to subtract. 125 minus 120 is 5. I've got to add a decimal up here and then add a 0. How many times does 60 go into 50? It doesn't. So I'm going to add a 0 there, and I have to add a 0 here. How many times does 60 go into 500? 60 goes into 500 8 times. That's 480. 6 times 8 is 48, so 60 times 8 is 480. So 500 minus 480 is 20. I can stop there. Why? And it says round to the nearest tenth. I love it when it tells us to round, because then we don't have to quite do as much work. So to round, I'm going to look at my hundredth spot. This number is going to determine what happens to my tenth. If this is 5 or larger, it makes the previous number go up by 1. If it's 4 or smaller, it just drops off. This is an 8, so that's larger than 5. So it's going to make this 0 go up by 1. So it's 0 plus 1. 1. So this is going to equal to 2.1 miles per minute. Okay, make sure you have all that written down. Okay, here's our last example. The average speed of one team in a relay race is about 10 miles per hour. What is the speed in feet per second? Go ahead and pause this and take a moment to write this down. Okay, the average speed of one team in a relay race is about 10 miles per hour. So I'm going to write this down. 10 miles per over 1 hour. What is the speed in feet per second? I'm going to underline this. The only thing that's the same is our per. We don't really do anything with that. So we're going to be changing our miles to feet and our hours to seconds. So we're changing both of them this time. So let's start with the first one, miles to feet. So I'm going to put this, create my fraction. So miles is on the top here, so it has to be on the bottom here. And feet is going to go on the top. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So there's my first fraction. Now I'm going to create my second one. I'm going from hours to seconds. So if hours is on the bottom, I'm going to reach over and put it up here on the top. And hours is changing to seconds, so I'll put seconds on the bottom. In 1 hour, there are 3,600 seconds. So now that I've got my fractions set up, I can start reducing. So I have miles here and hours here, and I can stretch all the way over here and get rid of this hours because this is multiplication. Because we're multiplying all of those, I can stretch over and do that. Okay, now I'm going to start multiplying. 10 times 5,280 is 52,800 times 1 is 52,800 feet over 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3,600 is 3,600 seconds. Now we need to simplify this, because this is a division problem. But I really don't want to divide this big number by this big number. That's kind of confusing. So here's a little trick. These both end with zeros. So because of that, I can get rid of 1 0 there and 1 0 there. That is the same thing as dividing both of these by 10. But if you look, they both have another 0. So I could do it again. So by getting rid of those 2 zeros, I did the exact same thing as dividing by 100. So now I have 528 feet over 36 seconds. That is so much easier to divide than these big numbers. So anytime you see that, as long as you have the same amount of zeros, you can reduce them like that. I'm going to set this up. 528 divided by 36. 36 goes into 52 one time. I'm going to subtract 36. I'm going to have to carry my 1. 12 minus 6 is 6. 4 minus 3 is 1. I'm going to bring down my 8. 36 goes into 168 4 times. Okay. So when you multiply 36 times 4, you get 144. So I'm going to subtract this. 8 minus 4 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. 36 doesn't go to 24, and I don't have any more numbers. So I have to add a decimal before I add a 0 down here. I need to figure out how many times does 36 go into 240. It's going to go in 6 times. I'll give myself a little bit more room. So it's going to be 6. 36 times 6 is equal to 216. I'm going to subtract this, carry my 1s. 10 minus 6 is 4. 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, it doesn't go to 24, so I've got to add a 0. What do you notice? If you're paying attention, you notice that's the exact same number as this. So it's just going to repeat. So this is 0.6 repeating. But I don't want to put just a bar notation. I'm going to want to round this to the nearest tenth. So in order to do that, I need to write my hundredths down. And I know it's going to be 6 because it's 6 repeating. So I'm going to write that second 6 down and use that to round. So this 6 is going to make this 6 go up by 1. So this is going to equal 14.7 feet per second. So there's my answer. Make sure you have all that written down, and that's the end of these notes.